Okay, so let's recap so we get the Hemshech. The Rebbe is going to add to the Chiddush of last time, but let's first get the build-up. The Maamar was started off by explaining why Basi Legani refers specifically to the building of the Mishkan as opposed to Matan Torah that came earlier. And the reason is because the ultimate Basi Legani, the Shechina coming into the world, is when it comes into the world through the Aveda of the world, through the Aveda of people in the world, that then it becomes internalized in the world. And that happened mainly by the Mishkan, V'asuli Mikdash, Masha'enke Matan Torah. Matan Torah was given from above. It wasn't connected with the Aveda of people in the world. The Rebbe said, but what gave the Koyach to do an Aveda in the Mishkan to bring the Shechina into the world? The Koyach for that was given by Matan Torah. Because Matan Torah, in a subtle way, had in it also the element of Aveda Sa'adam. How did Matan Torah have that? Because it came through Haidas Yisrei. Since this came through the acknowledgement of Yisrei, so that's why Matan Torah had, in a bekoyachtik way, in a potential, in a subtle way, the mile of Aveda Sa'adam, and therefore this was able to be at least the empowerment in the Sinas Koyach that later on in the Mishkan we should bring godliness into the world through our Aveda. And with this, the Rabbi explained the last thing we learned last time. It says in the pasuk, "V'ra'isi ani sheyesh Yisrein lechachma min asichlos ke Yisrein ha'er min ha'cheshach." Shlomo Melech says that I see there's a Yisrein, there's an advantage to chachma over sichlos, and Chassidus explains that means to chachma of Torah over foreign chachmas, over other intellects, the same as there's the Yisrein ha'er min ha'cheshach. So Chassidus explains just like the true advantage of Eir. When is there a true mile of light? Is when the light came from transforming darkness to light, being mahapeh cheshach ta'ir. So too, Chachma, when do you have the true advantage of Chachma? When I transformed Sichlos, foreign Chachmas, to Torah by using other Chachmas, other intellects, and using them as a tool to understand Torah. So the Rebbe said, the last thing we learned, what's the Chiddush v'ra'isi ani? Why does it take a Shlomo Melech to understand this? If you know that the Maila of Eir is when it comes from changing darkness to light, so the same thing should be with Chachma. So the Chiddush is, because Chachma Satera, Torah by its very nature is something that was given from the Eibishter. It's not something that's connected to our Aveda. So with Chachma Satera, one would think that our Aveda has no bearing on it, because the very nature of Torah is, it's from above. Therefore, Shlomo Melech said, no, it's not true. Even with Torah, it has a Yisrei l'chachma min asichlos. Even with Chachma Satera, the ultimate advantage of Torah is when it comes from transforming Chachmas Chitzenius, secular Chachma, secular knowledge, to Chachma Satera. So he says, so this advantage in Matan Torah is that even by Torah, through the acknowledgement of Yisrei, through the birur of Chachmas Chitzenius, that Yisrei was perfect in foreign Chachmas, this added to Chachmas HaTorah, and this is the Chiddush of Shlomo Melech. Yisera Mizu, now the Rebbe is adding to this. Shaidei Haidas Yisrei Kaidem Matan Torah. In addition to the fact that in general we say this big Chiddush that took Shlomo Melech to recognize this, that Chachmas HaTorah, the wisdom of Torah, is also affected and influenced and increased, becomes in a better level when it comes from transforming Chachmas Chitzenius, foreign intellects, to Chachmas HaTorah. The Rebbe says, now let's take this a step further. Shal Yidei Haidas Yisrei Kaidem Matan Torah, the acknowledgement of Yisrei, the element of transforming foreign intellects that was there in Matan Torah, through that Matan Torah was brought about through Yisrei's acknowledgement, that accomplished that Nasa Yisrei Gam B'chlolus Ha'inyan de Matan Torah. Not only does this have an effect on Chachmas HaTorah in general, but it has an effect on the event of Matan Torah, that the event of Matan Torah seems to be completely detached, disconnected from people. It was something that was given from Hashem. Even though Matan Torah was completely given from Hashem, it wasn't connected with Avedas Adam. The Rebbe is saying this in contrast, like he's going to explain in the brackets, to Chidushim in Torah. In Chachmas HaTeira that we spoke about before, it says there's a concept of Masha Talmud Vasik Asid L'Chadish, that people learn Teira and they reveal and they uncover and they arrive at new Chidushim in Teira. So although the Rebbe pointed out earlier it's not a true Chiddush, but we see somehow there's a participation, there's an effect that Talmidei Chachamim could learn Teira and find Chidushim and reveal Chidushim and uncover things that were previously hidden. So there's some partnership. But that's with the Teira after it was given. But at the time of Matan Teira was completely from the initiative of the Eibishter. Matan Teira was completely given from above. There, seemingly, people have nothing to do with it. It says, "Danyanim Shabbat Teira shemischat shemayidei Talmud vasek shabachol der." The Chidushay Teira that take place, that occur after the Teira was given in every generation. There's a Talmud vasek. There's those who learn Teira who arrive at Chidushim in Teira. Hagam shaha'inyanim atzmam nitnu kfar b'Sinai. Even though the Rebbe mentioned earlier, they're not truly Chidushim, they're not truly a novelty of the Talmud Vasik, because it was given in some level in Sinai, and the Talmud Vasik is merely revealing it. Nevertheless, hamshachasa me'yehelim legilui hu ha'yidei ha'aveda v'yigia shel Talmud Vasik. Till this Talmud Vasik, till the people in every generation came and brought out these Chidushim, they were hidden. They weren't accessible. They weren't known to anyone. So there, with regards to the Chidush Teira, we can see the participation, the partnership with the Talmud Vasik, who has to play a part in uncovering it at least. Mashen kein hamshacha de Matan Teira, haisa b'derech hamshacha milmayla shaloya yidei aveda v'yigia. But the giving of the Torah originally, was something that seemingly had no partnership, no participation at all with people, with mankind. There's no avodah v'yagia.
How about the 49 days that preceded it?
What?
Independent of the 49 days?
The 49 days was sort of like to make a asar shlim, to make a fertile ground. But that didn't bring about Matan Teira. Matan Teira is completely from the Eibishter. And here comes nevertheless a greater chiddush, that not only does Heidas Yisra, is Yisra in HaChachma min HaSichlus, there in the process of a person learning Torah, that learning Torah where we see we have some participation, we have some involvement, we're able to be Mechadish in Torah. So we can understand to some degree that transforming Chachmas Chitzenius could have an impact on the Chachmas HaTorah, because we see there is some partnership of people in Chachmas HaTorah, at least a little bit. Says the Rabbi even furthermore, that human partnership, the acknowledgement of Yisrael had an impact even on the Matan Torah, on the original giving of the Torah, through the bidur v'afichas chachma d'leumaza l'chachma d'ktusha shayidei heidas Yisrael, through the presence of human involvement, so to speak. The fact that Yisrael's acknowledgement was a refinement of foreign intellects, and that preceded, and that was an element of Matan Torah. Nasa Yisrael kavayachal gamba haTorah shenitna b'Matan Torah. This had an effect on the whole Torah, the giving of the Torah, which is something that's seemingly completely above and removed from human involvement, was affected and influenced by the fact that it contained that factor, that element of birur chachmas chitzenius, of chachma min hasichus. V'yesh leimar, says the Rebbe, what is this advantage? What's this influence? What's this change? The Yisrein kavayachal, so to speak, this increase, this advantage, shenasa behatera, that was given to Torah, al yedei heidas Yisrein, through this element of birur chachmas chitzenius that happened through Yisrein acknowledging, the Eibishter is greater than everyone. What is exactly the nature of this advantage? The Torah mitzad atzma, the Torah itself, without that involvement of Yisrael, would have been hamshacha milmayla. The Torah itself, by its very definition, by its very nature, Torah is something that comes from the Eibishter. It comes from above. It's by definition removed and above and detached from any involvement of us. It's given to us, but we don't play a part in it. Sha'avodas hamata eina magia l'sham. Therefore, by its nature, Torah is something that our avodah doesn't have and doesn't reach it. It doesn't change it. Mitzvahs were given that we perform the mitzvahs. It's in dvarim gashmim, it's in gashmim, physical objects. So we have an influence and an impact on the very nature of the mitzvahs of the mitzvah, so to speak. Torah, by definition, is above us. So the Matan Torah, the way it would have been by itself, would have been in a way that we have no access to it, we have no impact on it. ומכל שכן שהאבדה דהפיכת החשך דלאומה זה לקדושה אינה מגיע לשם. So for sure it would have had to be that the avodah of a person struggling with his darkness, of changing and transforming the cheshech, the l'umazah, the negativity to air, to light, wouldn't have an impact on Torah, because Torah is higher than negativity, because that only has bearing in a level that has some relationship with the cheshech. Ki legabe ha'er de Torah ein melchatchila ha'cheshech. The air of Torah is above cheshech, so therefore in the air of Torah, the way it was given, the way it would have been given, it would have no effect. It wouldn't be affected by changing darkness because it has no relationship with the darkness. Came here the acknowledgement of Yisrael, the Haidah of Yisrael, and this changed, so to speak, the whole nature of Matan Torah. It changed the whole nature and characteristic of the Torah that was given, because now the fact that it had the element of Haidah Yisrael, this gave it a relationship, like the Rebbe is going to explain. Through the fact that Matan Torah came not exclusively from above, but it came originally with some seeming participation of people in the world. It came following the Haidah, the acknowledgement of Yisrael, the recognition of Yisrael based on his understanding of Chachmas Chitzenius, that Gadol Havai Mikol Elokim, Nimshach b'ha'atzmus shalamayla migeder demayla umata er v'cheshach. Through this, Torah came and has a connection with the darkness. So you say it has a connection with the darkness, so we're bringing Torah down, we're making it lower. He says no. That there's a separation between light and darkness, between Maila and Mata, between above and below, that's in levels. In the Eibishter himself, in Atzmus, in the essence of the Eibishter, transcends all the distinctions and all the differences between different categories, between light and darkness, between high and below. Everything is all a part of Hashem. In the Atzmus, in the essence of Hashem, it all is part of one thing. The accomplishment, the influence of the acknowledgement of Yisrael in Matan Torah is, now Matan Torah came from a higher level. It came and it contained the Atzmus, the Etzem, the essence of the Eibishter. And when it contains the essence of the Eibishter, so now there's no more lack of relationship, there's no more distinction between Eir and Cheshach. That accomplishes that now a person's Avodah has an influence and an impact on Torah that's completely above him, because there's no separation between above and below. We're all just manifestations of Atzmus. And therefore, it says this whole change, this impact of Matan Torah that came through the involvement, the participation of Yisrael, caused two things. First of all, shal yedei ha'avodah v'yigia yuchlu lechadesh b'Torah la'afashala. Says this, we said, when a person learns Torah and says a chiddush in Torah, finds something new. So earlier the Rebbe said it's not really a chiddush. He's using the rules of Torah, so he's just revealing something that was contained there, but maybe wasn't so visible before. But it's some degree of a chiddush. Yeah, we'll see, and I'll say more in a second, but some aspects of Chiddush. We call it a Chiddush, Talmud Vasi. It says, this itself, why is there such a possibility? We got the Torah. We can't make a Chiddush in mitzvahs. We can't change the rules of mitzvahs, chas v'shalom. How is it that there's constant, the whole experience of learning Torah from all the generations always involves new Chiddushim. There's always new Svarim. Why is there chidushim? It's the Torah, it's the Eibishter's Torah. How does someone have a right, an ability, and a power to be mechadish? Says the Rebbe, this was the accomplishment of Yisrael. The fact that Matan Torah was given through the acknowledgement of Yisrael, it changed the whole nature of Torah. Now Torah is not bound by the separation between, so to speak, man and Torah, separation between Eir and Cheshach. Now Torah is coming from Atzmus, and therefore a person is able to have an influence on Torah because it transcends that separation. That gives the koyach to be mechadish in Torah. And even furthermore, says the Rebbe, now you can no longer say, oh, Torah is not affected by Cheshach because it's above Cheshach. Torah is from Atzmos that transcends that difference between being above Cheshach and below Cheshach. And therefore now, al yidei birer hasichlus, the chachmas chitzenis yeh yisrin b'chachmas ha-Torah. This accomplishes that through learning Torah in a way that it's refining and elevating foreign intellects, this has an impact on Torah. That it's able to have an impact on Torah, that is a result of this change of the whole nature in Torah that was accomplished through the acknowledgement of Yisrael. Okay, so now just 2 points. One point that the Rebbe points out in Hara 28. He says, we're saying two things over here. On the one hand, we said the Matan Torah has no connection with man. Because even though people could be mechadish in Torah, but Chassidus says many times, a chiddush is not a true chiddush. If you're using the rules of Torah, so that means when someone says a chiddush, the chiddush was there all along. The chiddush is based on the rules. You just have to go and make the equation enough, and you'll arrive at them. So he's just merely uncovering them. He's persevering and following and using those rules in order to get to that chiddush. In the Ha'ara 28, the Rebbe quotes from Tafresh Samach Vav, from the Rebbe Rashab, that really you often see that chidushim go beyond that. Chidushim in Torah, a person who toils, the Rebbe Rashab is explaining over there how through toiling, through working, through Yigiyah in Torah, a person reaches the essence of Torah, that he has the ability to make true chidushim, or he calls it ke'ein chidushim. They're such chidushim, they're almost complete novelties, they're almost truly new. So the Rebbe says two things in Hara 28. First of all, the Rebbe says it's ke'ein. The Rebbe Rashab doesn't say it's mamash a chiddush. It's ke'ein chiddush. But the Rebbe says even that chiddush, he says that a person has the ability to do, and some level it's a chiddush, to really bring out new things in Torah, that is what Yisrei gave us. That's the koyach of Yisrei. That's because the haidah of Yisrei, the acknowledgement of Yisrei, the element of birur chachmas chitzenius that was accomplished through Yisrei's acknowledgement being a precedent to Matan Torah, that changed the nature of Torah, and like the Rebbe spelled it out over here, so the first result of that is, there is some real chiddush in Torah. To some degree, it can really be defined as a chiddush. People are really changing the Torah, are really going deeper into Torah and altering the Torah, because Yisrei's Haidah changed the nature of Torah. The second thing is that Torah is able to be increased through birur chachmas chitzenius. And the Rebbe says in Ha'ara 30, let's learn this Ha'ara inside. Just, the Rebbe is explaining, what does this mean that you take chachmas chitzenius, take foreign intellect, secular knowledge, and you refine it and transform it and make it into chachmas ha-Torah. So the way you do it is that a person uses foreign ideas, he uses secular knowledge, and uses that to understand Torah better. So the Rebbe says there's two levels in this birur. There's two ways. One way is shal yidei limud hachachma shalamad mitaisef lo yidiyah b'Torah. Person learns secular knowledge, secular sciences, and that helps him understand the Torah better. Shegam az hi nechlelas b'Torah. Then already it's included in Torah. It was refined. It was transformed. That's one manner that you have this Yisrein HaChachma min HaSichlus, the advantage of Chachmas HaTorah, that's there because you transform Sichlus, you transform secular knowledge into Torah. But then the Rebbe says, it goes greater than that. Shehinasis chelek b'Torah. That the true transformation is that the secular knowledge not only helps you out in your Torah, it's like your stepping stone for Torah, it becomes changed from being secular knowledge to being Torah. It becomes a part of Torah. The Rebbe brings a beautiful illustration of this. Kash chishbein is shebehilchas kiddush hachedesh la Rambam. The Rambam in Hilchos Kiddush HaChedesh gives us the astronomical calculations to figure out how to know where the moon is. Shenilkachu misifrei Chachmei Yavon. The Rambam himself writes these calculations were taken from the Greek philosophers who. Va'afal pikein, he says, nevertheless, it's not the pshat that there are tools that we're using them to understand Torah better, so they became like a stepping stone. Heim loy emtsayim, they're not mediums, they're not merely tools. Shal yadam yitesa bavanas HaTorah that help us to understand Torah, understand Hilchos Kiddush HaChedesh. Ela shehem nasu chelek b'Torah, after these calculations were used to understand Kiddush HaChedesh, the calculations that originated in Chachmei Yavon, they are Hilchos Kiddush HaChedesh. They themselves are Torah. So this was an actual transformation. Something that was Chachmas Chitzenis is not only enabling us to understand Torah, it's now Torah. And the Rebbe brings the words of the Rambam.
Did it become Torah?
After it became the tool for Torah, so now this.
At what point? When the Rambam brought it in?
There it became when the Rambam brought it in. Listen to the Rambam's words, where the Rebbe, so the Rebbe support proves this. He says, where do you see this? He says, the Rambam says, in Hilchos Kiddush HaChedesh, the Rambam gives us all the calculations. Then he says, learn all this. He says, V'lo yeshetetu b'svarim acherim. The Rambam says, learn this halachas. I'm giving you all the information that you need. I'm giving you all the calculations that you need. It says, now you don't have to hover, you don't have to roam in foreign pastures and foreign svarim. Dirshu may all Sefer Havaya, rather, says the Rambam, acquire it all from the Sefer of Hashem. So he says, you're learning these calculations. They originated somewhere else. They originated by the Svarim, by the Greek Svarim. He says, but now when you're learning them from the Rambam, you're learning it from Sefer Hashem. This is now part of Torah. It's not a tool from somewhere else to help me understand Torah. This is Sefer Hashem.
So let's say the Ram didn't come with that. We still have the calculation of the Torah.
What?
They said that the Ram didn't come with this calculation from
Right.
Yevanim, right? But we have a calculation from the Torah itself, how to figure out the
We wouldn't, it doesn't say the calculations in Torah, but so we would have to get the calculations from somewhere. Right? So then we would be using them to understand. The Torah tells us, in this week's Parsha, tells us we have to figure it out, and we would have to get those tools to figure it out. It would still be a tool for Torah. But the Rebbe says, now it's not merely a tool for Torah. Now I'm learning Torah, I'm learning Rambam. This idea is that their origin is from somewhere else. No, now they're not somewhere else, now they're Torah. So this is the ultimate Yisrein HaChachma min HaSichlus. The Sichlus was changed into Chachma, into Chachmas HaTorah. Okay, stop. Okay, Bir ha'inyin. Da Yisrein shenasa idei shahayda Yisrein shagad lavai mikol lekim ba'imik yesem. So again, the whole Maamar is discussing how Matan Torah, although it wasn't the ultimate Basi Legani, because it didn't come through Avedas Adam, it came Milmaila, came from Hashem. Nevertheless, it was a Nesinas Kayach, it empowered the Va'asuli Mikdash because it had, in a subtle way, it had B'Kayach, the element of Avedas Adam. Through that Matan Torah was brought about from Haidas Yisrael. Until now, the Rebbe was explaining in a tremendous way what was the impact of Haidas Yisrael Matan Torah. It changed the whole nature of Matan Torah. It gave Torah a connection to mankind. And now the Rebbe wants to take that further and give us a deeper understanding of the impact that Haidas Yisrael had on Matan Torah. Ba'omek yesem. Yuvam bahaktim. So first we have to preface another question about this whole acknowledgement of Yisrael. Shalachayra ene muvan. What was the acknowledgement of Yisrael? What was this great earth-shattering statement of Yisrael that this was the prerequisite for Matan Torah? Yisrael said, Ata yadaiti, now I know, ki godel havaya mikol alekim, that Hashem is greater, mikol alekim, than all the idols, all the avodah zaros. What's so historical, what's so monumental about this statement? It says, Shalachayra ene muvan, seemingly is not understood. What's the significance of this acknowledgement? The lefi pshute, according to the simple interpretation of the pasuk, Shakavana b'mikol alekim hi la'avei zara. That mikol alekim literally means the idols. He's acknowledging the superiority of Hashem over lahavdil, over the idols. Kedepirish Rashi ala pasuk mikol alekim, like Rashi interprets. When Rashi said, when Yisro says Hashem is greater than kol alekim, says Rashi, how did Yisro know that? Melamed shayamakir b'chol avei zara sheba'ilam. This teaches us that Yisro was familiar with all the avei zaras in the world. So that means, why does Rashi say that? Because the simple meaning of kol alekim is all the avei zaras. If that's the case, so what's so special about this acknowledgement? What's so great about this declaration? Mai haribusa bezeh. What's the chiddush? What's the advantage? What's so special? Shahaida, about him acknowledging Shavaya Gadol Mikol Alekim, that the Eibishter is greater than all the Avei Zaras. There doesn't seem to be any accomplishment, any big stage with that. V'yeshleimer Habir. So the Rebbe is going to explain, the basic explanation is going to be, when we understand what Avei Zara means, the subtle meaning of Avei Zara is any existence other than Hashem. Yisro's understanding that Gadol Havai Mikol Alekim is not just Avei Zara in the coarsest sense, but he had to understand the highest levels of godliness and understand how Hashem is greater than that. This acknowledgement of Yisro was the ultimate recognition, the ultimate understanding of the greatness of Hashem. Shleimer Habir, Pima Shekasav Harambam, says first we have to understand the definition of Avei Zara. When we understand the real meaning of Avei Zara, then we'll understand what Avei Zara means in a subtle way, and then we'll be able to understand the deeper significance of this acknowledgement of Yisro. The Rambam says Shatchilas in Avei Zara first wasn't that they denied the existence of Hashem. Mashachashvu, the first idol worshippers, was they thought Akiva and Shakadosh Baruch Hu bara es hakechavim v'agalgalim lahanig es ha'ilam. The Eibishter created the stars and he created the planets, and he created them that they should have their influence on the world. Mimega Tfuas Shamesh, that the sun and the moon, they all have their impact on things that grow. V'heim ha'mishamshim lefanav, and they're Hashem's servants, so to speak. Lachein roi lachlek lahem kavet. So they thought, of course, we know that everything was created by the Eibishter. But if the Eibishter created these mediums, he created these servants, so we have to give them some honor also, because they're Hashem's servants. That was their original mistake. They didn't deny Hashem. V'ta'usam haya bazeh. What was the mistake in this? Shechashvu, they thought, sheyeshiltein lakechavim lashpia bebchirasam. They thought that the stars and the planets that were created by Hashem to give hashpah, to have influence and impact on the world, was in a way that they have some free choice, they have some independence in determining how the hashpah should happen. They have a shiltin lashpia b'bchirasa. V'layadu ha'emes, they didn't know the truth. Shehu yisparach mashpia al yadam kigarzem biyad ha'chetzef. That they were created by the Eibishter, they're like an axe. If a person has a meal and he's hiring waiters to serve, so the waiters, I can give a thank you to the waiters even though the food is coming from the owner of the meal. But when a person takes an axe and chops down a tree, I don't say a thank you to the axe. The axe is a tool being held in his hand. This was their mistake, that the Eibishter created the stars and the planets as a garzem biyad ha'chetzef. They have no play, they have no say in the matter. But their mistake was a subtle mistake. They knew that the Eibishter created them. They didn't recognize this truth, that they are completely dependent, they're completely a tool being held by Hashem. So what was their mistake? Was they attached some independence to the intermediaries. It says, from this, says the Rebbe, we understand that Avei Zara is there not just in denying Hashem. The subtle form of Avei Zara is attaching any independence to any intermediaries. Intermediaries exist in many, many levels. There's the higher Elames, there's the spiritual worlds, there's the spheres, there's Atzilus. The subtle Avei Zara is to attach independence even to those intermediaries. So to be able to say Gadol Havaya Mikol Elokim in the highest sense is to know all the spheres, all the levels of godliness, and to recognize how they're all Kigarzim Biyad HaChetzev, and the only true existence is Hashem. This was the acknowledgement and the recognition of Yisrael. That's something that had to be a prerequisite for Matan Torah.